Good afternoon, everybody, and hello to another Kerfuffle webinar with our friends from 20EA. We have long-time friend of the show. That sounds like Fraser Crane, doesn't it? Katie Bellamy, how the devil are you?
I'm very good, Simon. I'm afraid that I've forgotten my pink hat this morning, this afternoon.
As long as you haven't flushed it down the toilet, I don't want it choking any turtles.
No, well, you see, you won't be able to stop me once we're back in the office. You see, it's in Milton Keynes, and I'm in the North East, so that's my excuse.
The excuse is valid. That's absolutely fine here. And we are joined today, I'm delighted to say, by a new guest, unless he's just found his way in like they do on those sort of Zoom calls. We have Darren here. Darren Wootton, hello. New addition to the team. Do you want to just give us a bit of an intro about yourself, Darren, so everyone knows?
Yeah, by all means. Thanks for allowing me to join the show. I've been in the estate agency market for probably around about 10 years. Obviously, you're a very known character, Mr. Whale, in the industry. And even though we may not have spoken much prior to this, we've definitely stood next to each other in the bar, usually with me behind you, waiting for your round to get in, going back to your old CRM days.
I don't know whether that sounded like an insult or a compliment, but I'm taking the latter.
Definitely the latter.
Good. Well,
the hospitality industry has been poorer as a result of you not being out. I recently joined Katie and the team at 20EA at the beginning of the year. So January the 4th was my first day, one day prior to the third lockdown. So it's been a virtual addition or entrance into the company. Prior to that, a lot of people in the industry may know me from my days at Ravensworth, where I supported many of your clientele, and also prior to that, eProp, working in the white label element of the guild, where fundamentally I was looking after a property franchise group.
So I mean this in the best possible way. You've been around.
I have, and I've also been an agent both in the UK and also in the Middle East over in Dubai. So,
okay. Well, there's bound to be some stories about that when we catch up. We'll talk about those stories.
I could have done with your credit card out there. I'll tell you that now.
So, Darren, just before we kick into the main thing, obviously, what you knew about 20CI beforehand, what was it particularly that really made you think this is a really exciting opportunity that these guys do?
Well, I think one of the things that has really sort of struck to me, I did have some knowledge of 20EA as a data provider prior to joining, but one of the things that I was been nothing but overwhelmed with and totally impressed in the 7 weeks that I've been on board is the quality of personnel that we have in-house and also the quality of data. Katie is now sick of me saying that we appear to be the industry's best kept secret. It's just phenomenal with regard to, where we get the data from, over 4,000 different data sources, and how we collate it and put it out. And like I say, I appreciate there's others in the market, but with regard to what we offer and where our data gets used and utilised is unbelievable. So
it is. I hope Katie doesn't mind me saying when she was talking about, getting involved with the Kerfuffle platform, I tried to sell it on the fact, you've got to be here because of my fashion sense. And she was like, no, I need to know the business reasons. And she spoke about, how do we stand out from the crowd? There's a few other people in our field. And I said, look, I really don't think in terms of your position in the market, that's an issue there, because what you are able to do with that data, that overall data, pulling it from so many more different sources than other people and put commentary around it is truly remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's as we all know, there's other people in the market that offer similar products to some of our offering, but that's only one element of what we actually do. The beauty with regard to the service and that we give to our clientele is a bespoke service. Literally, you can utilise it for whatever you want. There's no one size fits all, and it's no, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. When I reverting back to my days in agency, is that you want the flexibility to be able to use the data, which is so powerful, in the manner that you see fit. And like I said, it's not for everybody to use in the same way.
Yeah.
It's so
isn't it? How you use that data, you know, and everything else remains the individual part of this. How you choose to market, but you've got to be able to get to the consumer at the end of the day. Otherwise, there's no point being here, is there?
Yeah, most definitely, and it's all about consumer getting the message out there. I mean, historically, in my days in my previous employment, I would have only been interested in the agents printing something like a leaflet or magazine and sending it out, you know, hard copies. Whereas now, you know, with my data hat on, it's all about spreading the information digitally. You know, it's refreshing for me because people were always saying, "Oh, well, Darren, you want me to print 20,000 leaflets off the back of it?" Well, yeah, we won't bother with that one. But yeah, we just can it's whatever you see fit. It's however you want to be done.
Cool. Well, look, just so we understand again, just as a recap, of course, as ever, we recommend that anyone goes to your landing page on Kerfuffle, so 20EA, just type that in, and you can see all of the overview information about any of our different partners on here, and it gives a really good explanation. Crucially as well, it also gives you a nice introduction to the company if you want to go back and see the basics. But it's fair to say you guys are experts in sort of... what's your bullet point slogan for describing 2020A, Katie?
I would say that our primary kind of headline would be that we're data experts. You know, that is what we kind of hang our hat on more than anything else. As Darren says, you know, we've got products that do certain things that other suppliers to the market offer, but that isn't, you know, it's just one of the things that we offer out of a wide range of different products. So the fact that we are experts in our field is really what sets us apart from some of our competitors.
And I'm a bit of a data expert because I've heard the phrase data lake and I can use it readily without really understanding.
I'm fairly sure you mentioned it about 3 times or 4 times.
Well, funny you should say that, Simon. Prior to me joining Katie in the team, I actually watched Katie and Paul on the last Kerfuffle webinar.
Yeah.
And I actually used data lake in my interview. Which,
oh my God. So what you're saying is I'm due a Kerfuffle recruitment fee. This is how we
Exactly. I mean, I just couldn't, you know, Katie said, what do you want to know? I said, I've seen the Kerfuffle webinar. Say no more. Where do I start?
I'm blushing. So let's kick on for today. So I'm really interested. So what we're doing today is really bringing that to life, isn't it? It's not hard, you know, cold grey data, but you're drawing an analysis of some of those statistics that you've analysed over the last year and what that means, and indeed, you know, to give a really transparent view. So today's title is a magnifying glass on the marketplace, isn't it? So I suppose if we were to take this down, 2020 was very much a year of 2 halves, wasn't it, in the property market? In April, it was pretty much a car crash. It was the end of days, nothing happening. And obviously then we came back, and I think we'd obviously have all been astounded at the level of recovery and the consistency of the recovery. What do your numbers tell us on both of those angles?
Yeah, well, very much so, Simon. You know, we came into the beginning of last year with quite a lot of optimism because there'd been the whole Brexit kind of depression in the end of 2019, and then we saw what was termed as the Boris bounce in January and February, and predictions were that this was going to be the best year for the property market that we'd seen in decades. It's true, actually. That was what happened, but not for the reason that we thought. So, you know, April time, I think everybody just was in huge fear as to what was going to happen, and very few people really predicted what did happen when lockdown was lifted in the middle of May. But by the time we'd got to the end of the year, sales agreed were actually up more than 10% on 2019. And new instructions were only down by 1.4%. So compared to where we were really in the first almost half of the year, by the time we got to the end of 2020, it was a really good news story.
And even with that car crash period, so we had a hiatus of however weeks and months, literally. So even almost taking that period out, that's an incredible recovery shows how robust and indeed, what hard work was put into it out there in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually looked at how different agents responded. So we'll come on to a little bit of that in a minute. But just looking more at the headline stats, there were far fewer price reductions and properties falling through just because of the demand in the market. And house prices went up by nearly 8%. So from a national average of 347,000 in 2019, the average asking price last year was 395,000. It's probably not going to be a surprise to you that the majority of the largest increases were in the southeast and the east of England. Both of those areas, house prices went up by over 20%. And I think that is quite obviously down to the kind of migration of people from London who no longer needed to be close to workplaces. And obviously that's something that has really powered the marketplace and the recovery. But equally, there's a lot to look at with regards to how different types of agent responded to the opportunities that were out there.
And how would your members were they able to use your data in any sort of proactive sense, or able to respond quicker to the marketplace because I think it's fair to say you keep your clients updated with this kind of information on a regular basis, don't you? It's not just you sitting there in an ivory tower looking at these stats. You are always trying to come up with an angle for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of tried to almost play our cards quite close to our chest initially. So in the first lockdown, we launched our client briefings, which were going out slowly to our own customers and giving them that kind of insight into what was happening in the market. To start off with, that was quite depressing news. Instructions have fallen off a cliff. Nobody's selling anything. Nobody's going anywhere. But gradually, as we moved out of the first lockdown, things became more positive, and we circulated some of the information more widely. But certainly, as far as our estate agency clients are concerned, they've been kept in the loop with regards to that level of information, and they've also had access to our insight products. So, having the ability to see on a day-to-day basis what is happening both nationally and in their own marketplace is something that we provide our clients with on a daily basis.
And why that, I guess, is important as well, isn't it? If as we know, when we came back to the market, it was stronger than anyone could have hoped for, and that was really important, wasn't it? Because if we had come back with any negativity, there could have been a negative spiral, domino effect, and who knows what different effect. But actually, because it was robust, because it bounced back, I'm guessing that there's a whole load of agents out there that would have been looking around, going, "This feels like we're in the middle of a massive hot market." But, they might have held back a bit longer in terms of reinvesting, bringing people back from furlough, because they might have thought they're just absolutely in isolation. Whereas given the support, the comfort blanket of your figures, they probably would be able to react quicker on that, wouldn't they, to staff up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we definitely worked with some of our clients as well, very much to kind of, be that advice service. And it is interesting to look at, and we can come on to that now if you want to. It's interesting to look at how different types of estate agency organisations, so what we've termed the winners and losers of 2020. We're not going to be naming and shaming anybody, so I'm not calling out any company names. But if we look at how each different type of organisation actually responded to both lockdown and then coming out of lockdown one, it shows us some quite interesting information. And now I'm going to challenge your technical abilities, Simon, but if you can bring up slide number 1.
Okay, Darren did describe this earlier off camera as the Debbie McGee moment, wasn't it? Here's my little
Very much so.
Let's just see what we can do.
Debbie, do your dazzling.
Yeah. That's absolutely perfect, isn't it? Okay, so let me just pull the. So okay, so you can just tell me there. So
yeah, so that new instruction market share, I think, is a really good way of looking at the marketplace and how the different agents responded.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you look at the very top line, that shows you the market share of independent agents, which is what we class as one branch agents. You can see that even at the start of the year, you know, they've consistently had the largest market share with just under 30% of all new instructions. But when we then come into the lockdown period, you can see really starkly how well they then responded at the point at which, you know, the other types of agents, the other three in the middle, were all on a downward trend.
And is that literally just because they're so agile, they can respond quicker?
Yeah, we think so. I mean, if you've just got one branch, it's not too much of a shift for you to have to work from home, because you're not trying to kind of, you know, balance huge teams of people and get them started with equipment and telling them what they need to be doing and all that kind of adjustment. Plus, it means that you can move very quickly if you do need to reopen. So I think that is why the independents really benefited from lockdown one. And you can see that at the end of 2020, even though the market share had declined, it was still higher than it had been even at the beginning of the year. Yeah. So, you know, they actually went into the ended the year with more than 6.4% higher market share for new instructions than in the previous year. And for SSTCs, it was up by 6.5% as well. So it wasn't just that they were bringing instructions to market and not selling them. They were really strong in selling what they brought to market.
Yeah. And what again it shows here, isn't it? And people often overlook this because, you know, the name of the game is at the moment these big corporates acquiring each other, merging with each other. But this is still very much sometimes it's a bit disparagingly called the long tail, but it shows the strength of that independent, smaller end of the marketplace, doesn't it? In terms of what it's doing. I think they talk about the wider economy, don't they? And I can never remember what it is, but just how much of your GDP is powered by businesses under 50 people and everything else there. That's very much echoed by this marketplace, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Well, it's funny you should...
Sorry, go on, Darren.
I was going to say, it's funny you should say that, Simon, because actually, as we've seen over the last 12 months, 350 estate agencies have actually closed down. Yeah. These have been mainly the SME agents, but those that are between 2 and 5 branches, in comparison, have actually grown. Yeah. So, you know, it hits home everything what you've just said about, you know, the smaller agencies being able to react quicker.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing story there, and again, just shows the story again of 2020 is pat on the backstage, isn't it? How bloody robotic. How many different us in prop tech world, you know, we faint the first sign of any sort of difficulty in the marketplace, but agencies just robust. It just keeps going, doesn't it? In the face of anything. And Darren, what's interesting there is I'd be fascinated. You're right in terms of the offices shutting down, but I think where it's, you know, just to show again how things evolve. That must have been explained away as well by the explosion of individual kind of associate models, broker models, whether that's, you know, Keller Williams, EXP, or all of these different ones where, you know, people are just moving from one area to the other in the industry, aren't they?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I've worked quite a lot in my previous over years with these online agencies, and I think one of the things the last 12 months has taught us as humans is all about a work-life balance. Yeah. And a lot of the agents, you know, whether through their own choice or fruition, or they've chosen to actually look at their lives and actually reevaluate what they want to get out of it. And that's why the likes of the EXP, the Keller Williams, you know, and the Purple, that's why they've all been so successful about giving people the opportunity. Because you know, us in sales, the old cliche is people buy from people. And that's fundamentally what they are. And a lot of very good agents that I know that have worked for some of the large corporates basically just want to reaffirm their identity and get out there and just give customer service. Yeah. That's fundamentally all it's about, with a good brand behind them.
Absolutely.
I think it's quite interesting though to see that bottom line on the graph, because that is on online estate agents.
That's this one here, if anyone can see. I don't know if the cursor is highlighting. Just around the 5% mark, yeah?
Yeah, so you can see that they, apart from the independents, they're the only group of agents that actually benefited from the first lockdown, and probably for the same reason. You know, they were already set up to work from home. It wasn't a situation that they needed to adjust for. But then they really lost that momentum when it came to the rest of the year. So they didn't. Online agents didn't actually see any growth in new instruction volumes throughout the year, and even though new SSTCs were up over 10% across the country, they actually their market share fell by 4.5% of SSTCs. So, you know, I think that it just shows that things are changing, and the way that different agencies adjusted to coming out of lockdown differed depending on the structure and the organisation itself. And online agents and perhaps the large agencies tended to be the ones that lost out. You know, large agencies, those with between 6 and 50 branches, their market share in new instructions was down by over 7%, and the corporates by 2.6%. So, you know, the real winners from the benefits of the stamp duty holiday were the independent agents and the SMEs.
Got you. And this is what, if I go down, shall I go down to the next slide? Is this just highlighting that information in a bit more detail, is it? In terms of...
Yeah, so it's just the information that we've just talked through. So you can see that for new instructions, the only ones that grew their market share were the independents and the SME agents, and that is the same for SSTCs. So it just demonstrates that the more agile the business is, the better it fared from the market last year.
Got you. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Great. And any more of these slides you want to go through, or?
Well, I mean, if you want to come on to the next slide, it's probably a little bit, I was going to say scary. It depends what context you're looking at it in, but it'll bring us on to talking about what 2020 looks like. Sorry, 2021 looks like so far. So the long and the short of it is that demand is absolutely outstripping supply. So we've gone from last year being a marketplace that we haven't seen the likes of in over a decade to something that is similarly, you know, something we're not used to, but for a completely different reason.
Yeah. So challenges and everything. And by the way, that is echoed. I must have had half a dozen conversations with agents this morning who were exactly exaggerating that point as well.
Yeah, because SSTCs are up by 17.5% so far this year on the same period last year, and bearing in mind that's when we were seeing what we were calling the Boris bounce. So it was a strong market that we're comparing it against, but new instructions are down by 20.5%, I think it is. So you can see that it's really something that isn't sustainable at all. And
what's interesting there, though, if you look at it across there, I mean, it's never. I've never felt like it's actually a balanced market, but actually the stats in terms of your index here appear to show, you know, until last year when it blipped out, remarkable consistency really between the balance there. But obviously that's just skewing, you know, to what, as you've highlighted, will probably be an outlier year, won't it, that we're looking at now?
Yeah, well, I think your point's, you know, exactly correct, Simon, because we probably thought in previous years that, oh, well, you know, we are seeing a buyer's market or a seller's market, but this just shows how minuscule that shift was in comparison to what we're seeing this year. And so, if agents don't do something about it, or the market doesn't balance itself out, then it's going to cause a big problem.
And surely, I mean, stamp duty's got to be a massive sort of artificial sort of effect on this, hasn't it?
It has. If you look at the next slide, that actually demonstrates, because it looks at it by quarter, so you can see when it started to shift, and so it was a buyer's market for a bit last year, but then in Q4 it really started to ramp up. So,
as they say.
And I think that's possibly kind of, for two reasons. The first is that by Q4, people were starting to realise that they might not hit the stamp duty holiday. If they agree a sale in December, they're not necessarily going to benefit from it. But equally, the change in repeated lockdowns, I think that has also shifted people's sentiment with regards to moving. So I think that there's a couple of different things that are affecting it in that respect.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what's that just highlighting. Oh, okay. Yeah, just highlighting then what's going to be missing out. 100. What's that then? So 12th of May, 254,000. Wow. Okay.
Well, let's come back to that. That's the jewel in my crown later, Simon.
Yes.
I'll just forget. It's all right. Okay. We'll okay. I'll stop sharing that for now. Then there we are. We'll keep that secret. No one saw that. You've been kind enough to say, by the way, anyone who's interested. Oh, in fact, somebody's just like, it couldn't be any better. Is it possible to get a copy of this data? Certainly, that report. If you want to either drop Katie down a line directly, or come back to us at simon@kerfuffle.com, or put your details just in the Facebook comments. We'll make sure you get a copy of these slides out as well, and I'm sure these guys can help you out even further. In fact, before you go on, we've got Paul who's just saying, hello, Katie. Is it not? I'll just go back to this point. Is it not because the smaller agents didn't follow the rules during lockdown? So, wonderfully, we have a hugely suspicious audience here. So yeah, I'm assuming we're going to take that, defend that with a straight bat, aren't we?
Yeah, I would hope not. But we can only interpret the numbers. I don't know what actions people were actually taking.
Oh, leave me to bitch slap the industry. Yeah, it was definitely, they were all breaking the rules. This is brilliant, Simon. Very interesting. Good. That's really nice to hear. Darren's in the house. Great report last year. High rating in Katie. Fantastic to see. Well, a copy of data. There we are. That's Ian's story. There we are. We'll get that. And he's already come back and said thank you. So our job is done. Now, just before we go on though, so that's sales, and of course that was, broadly speaking, a hugely successful and positive story there. I believe that's not strictly the case though on the letting side of things, was it? The picture of last year.
No, unfortunately not. I would like to portray the same picture, but I can't. Unfortunately, no. Letting saw the opposite. What happened in the sales market? New instructions were actually down 8.4% year on year, and let agrees very similar at 8.3%. You've seen price reductions and fall throughs increase by 8.8% and 4.3% respectively, and as the market softened.
And is that just the classic counter-cyclical nature of sales and lettings, or is there something more we can surmise from that?
Well, I suppose you can surmise by the fact that a lot of people may have historically rented in places like London, and as they've migrated out to the home counties and chosen to actually buy properties for to get out the lettings merry-go-round and actually decide to buy.
And that's shifted it all across, yeah? That does make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And interesting.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more flexibility on commuting nowadays, and which meant people had previously been renting in towns and cities for their work, and then they don't have to bother anymore.
Well, this time next year is going to be fascinating, isn't it, to see whether these trends were temporary to a degree, or whether they're going to be hard coded. So what are you able to glean so far? So we've looked at kind of the picture in 2020, extrapolating that out into 2021. What are you thinking?
So we'll have a quick chat about the stamp duty holiday in a minute, but putting whatever the Chancellor decides to do with that aside, I think that what we're seeing from 2021 so far is that if this continues, it's going to be a huge problem for agents. There's going to be much lower amounts of stock coming to the market. And although they'll be selling what they do bring on, and house prices will have to go up if there isn't more stock. If there's not as much coming to the market, then it affects the bottom line immediately. So I think it's going to be really important for agents to try and think about how they deal with that now, rather than just finding that they're 6 months down the line and they've got half the amount of stock on their books than they would normally do.
Yeah, and you need to start now, doesn't it? It's like all of these things. It's not like you can just whack an advert up or something like that, is it? To get these engines working effectively, there needs to be a bit of brand awareness. You need to build the trust over a period of time, don't you? And so,
I've been saying it since the outset of the year. It's really, I do appreciate that agents have probably got the biggest pipeline they've ever had, and they're trying to carry it through to the end of March like an expectant mother. I appreciate that. But however, we all know that come April the 1st, whatever happens, April onwards, they need to replenish their stock. And the only way to do that is through going out to market and ceasing it.
Yeah. And it really is, isn't it? It's why this industry suffers so endemically from feast and famine, isn't it? And it's probably not surprising, isn't it? Because when your problem isn't about, you've got obviously a fat pipeline there, the last thing probably on your mind is going to be prospecting. But it's that danger of the lag, isn't it? If you don't spot that lag coming, then you're going to have that period where, actually, going back to April, it was a train crash for a different reason. But you are going to see exactly the same thing without the same preparation.
It's supposed to be reactive as opposed to proactive. You really basically got to nurture and actually be proactive with regards to your marketing and actually try and, get those properties in.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we do for our clients is to actually help them to communicate with people who are likely to come to the market. So rather than just targeting, which they can target the stock that is already on the market with their competitors through our products, but that's only a small proportion of the stuff that comes to market on a yearly basis. About over 2/3 of everything that comes to market is a brand new listing. It's not switched agents. So actually talking to those people who are in the market to move, but before they stick their toe in the water, is really going to be key, even more so in a market like this. So that's basically what we developed our off-market model for. Agents traditionally love a good blanket mailing campaign. They love wandering around and sticking leaflets through every door in the town. But it really
did you see, Kate? Did you see Darren? He almost did a during the war style thing there. It was like I could see him drifting off into days gone by.
Poacher turned gamekeeper.
That is completely what agents love doing. And I'm on some of the estate agency Facebook groups, and there's still people saying, I do this, and I do it once every month. Go and stick leaflets through everybody's door. And it's just craziness, to be honest with you, because the cost of doing that when you should actually be keeping a tight hold on your marketing budget is like I said, ridiculous. Not to repeat myself, but instead we developed our off-market model, which identifies properties that are likely to come to the market in the next 12 months. So
is that phrase, that wonderful phrase, the propensity to move, which is the only vaguely technical thing I have, but you literally use a variety of different methodologies, don't you, to define who is literally almost about to move before they even know it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what Darren has started calling the Holy Grail. So
Exactly. I've trademarked that, by the way, Whaley.
yeah,
So.
if you get a sales pitch from Darren, you know what to expect. But it's true, in 2019, well, because we track the property market on a daily basis anyway, we can actually look at the properties that we said would come to the market and match them back and see whether they did. And we've not completed that for 2020 yet, but in 2019, 73% of all the properties that came to market were predicted by our off-market model.
Wow.
So,
that is ground, because I mean, one of the things that let's be honest, Katie, there's been a lot of these systems that have promised this, haven't they? And it's promising a variety of black magic, voodoo, and everything else there. And I know a load of agents who have got very excited, and then it just hasn't transpired. But you're talking that's way above the point of statistical sort of relevance, isn't it? There to be able to do something useful with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for our agency clients, we can also offer them kind of an extension of that, where we will overlay the properties where they were the last agent to sell the property. So they can identify those, houses or flats or whatever where they sold it last time, but the owners are likely to put it on the market again. And it allows them to kind of nurture those leads even further, because they've got a knowledge of the property. They know that they can sell it, and they can put that information across to the potential vendors. So even taking just the general off-market data is fantastic, and that gives you access to that kind of 73% figure, but the conversion on an off-market lead where you were the property's last estate agent sale is kind of gold dust essentially, and we provide that automatically to our off-market clients.
Because Katie, one of the things you've got there, which is obviously, I'll steal Darren's Holy Grail analogy, although I have just had a decent assist from the church, so we'll have to stop using that as technically they think they own that. But the Holy Grail for agents so often is to have an uncontended, pitch, isn't it? To be the only show in town at an appraisal. Now you stand obviously a far greater chance of that is rather than when they're going on one of the portals and then splashing out a few inquiries. If you've managed to nurture them and convince them with compelling information that you're the agent there, and then they like the valuer when they come round, you've got a much higher chance, haven't you, of being the only uncontended show in town?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's basically what the off-market data is all about. It's about nurture. As I said, it's people who are likely to come to the market in the next 12 months. So it goes back to what we were saying before about they really need to be being proactive and thinking about their sales pipeline now. If they're sending out letters to the off-market audience immediately, there will be some people who will respond. But there'll be others who are in the model that will be in the market kind of 3 months' time, 6 months' time, 12 months' time. And it's about putting together an ongoing marketing campaign that nurtures those types of leads and makes sure that when they are ready to talk to an estate agent, our clients are the ones that are top of mind.
Without giving away trade secrets, and please do give away trade secrets, and I'll just make notes here. And I appreciate that, as you said, every business is individual, and you work bespoke with clients and everything else. If they're in that off-market stage at the moment, what does a nurturing plan look like to you? As much as you can do a kind of vanilla one. I mean, in terms of regularity of contact, because you don't want to go in. You can't go too hard, can you, and too fast, because then it appears spammy. So what works?
So it's about establishing a trusted advisor relationship, essentially. So you can point them towards information that about the property market, which can be generated from either things like our client briefings that we send out to our customers, or they can get it themselves from the insight tool. So they can use that kind of really it's kind of soft sell information that allows them to establish a relationship with a potential vendor, which shows that they know what's going on in the local marketplace. You can push, a secondary mailer might be along the lines of pushing them towards a valuation widget on your website, so that then you're a little bit kind of warmer as to giving them a call to action. And then it's just making sure that you keep in touch with them and dropping that information in when it would be of interest or is likely to be of interest. So it's
very much omni-platform, isn't it? You can get them into the digital journey as well. Yeah. You've got that absolute sweet spot, haven't you, where you can actually make sure that you're just touching them in the right possible way and nurturing them. I told you, say it again. If you want seriousness, go to Chris Watkins. If you want a child in a man's body, come to me. As much as the soft sell as well, Katie, I'm all about the soft sell. As you can tell, our friends at Kramer Science have got a sailboard with my face on it, so you don't have to tell me about the soft sell.
that takes me back to my days selling property in Dubai with my face all over the boards there. But fundamentally, the off-market model with regard to the nurturing campaign is no different to the prospecting market in respect that it's all about the method of approach. I mean, everybody knows that when properties come to the market, you try and enter with a soft sell by the fact that they're looking to buy a property. Can you help with regard to them looking for a property? And the off-market journey is exactly the same. I mean, we see how successful it works on the likes of Facebook and that I can be on a site on looking for something to buy, and then suddenly there's an advert on Facebook or Instagram, and I think that's great. They must know that I want to buy that, and it's there. And I'm a salesman, so I'm a sucker to be a purchaser, a consumer.
We're the easiest to sell to be.
Oh, exactly. But it's the same way with regard to the off-market model. If people are starting that propensity to move journey, it may even be 35 weeks prior to them actually moving. If you can start to drop correspondence of any form softly around there to say, look, guys, if you've ever thought about moving, we're here. And then you just follow it up. It might even be that the agents take the data and even drop a magazine off or just do something.
It's all about now, and has resonated massively for me. I've been lucky enough to work with some of the very best agents in both UK and around the world. And one of the big differences is that they don't look at the short term, do they? They're not looking at the short term, both in terms of staying in contact post sale. So, a lot of people hand over the keys and it's sayonara, see you in 7 years, and then act surprised when they go with someone else. But also that understand that period for a vast majority of people. The reason that the likes of Rightmove, Move and the portals has such levels of property porn is because there is passive interest, isn't there? Looking around, reviewing, and everything else, and that's the audience you've got to get to, isn't it? Rather than the classic one where this person wakes up tomorrow and says, "I'm going to move," and then you're fighting against 5 other agents, and it's difficult to stand out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're trying to, with regard to the model that we quote. Well, I've quoted the Holy Grail. You're actually getting into people's properties before they even know they want to move. Yeah. And that's because we gauge the market with the home mover being the common denominator from so many different aspects. We actually know that they're going to be moving, and that's where we get our off-the-market model.
Yeah. So looking at it then, okay, what does this mean for agents then? Because clearly, obviously, that isn't sustainable in terms of that unbalance. What's got to happen?
So one of two things will happen. Either the house prices are just going to increase, or we need to see an increase in properties coming to the market. And to be honest, I think that actually communicating with the likes of our off-market audience can help with that. So not only just from the aspect of for the individual agents, but actually for the property sector and agents themselves to be talking to those people who are thinking about moving but are on the fence. Our off-market model says that they're likely to move, but they haven't made that decision yet. So for agents across the country to be communicating with that audience and convincing them through the soft sell information about what's going on in the marketplace, and building a relationship with those potential vendors could actually encourage, you know, an increase in organic instructions across the country. So it's not necessarily just about individual agents and their own performance. Actually, what an agent does and how they portray themselves, whether it's to our off-market audience or whether it's through, you know, the kind of charity work that they do or how they operate in their local communities, all of that kind of stuff will help to tip the balance for those people who are undecided as to whether they want to move. If they get a feel that you know, they're confident in the marketplace again, then they'll be more likely to bring their properties to the market. And I think that there is work that agents can do themselves to help influence that.
Yeah. And first of all, by talking to you two good people as well to get your hard sell, you just let yourselves off there. I do like the idea when you were talking there about, okay, there's only two things that can happen, and house prices can just increase. Maybe that's what Rishi Sunak's idea is, to pay off the entire debt. If house prices just increase exponentially, we're all okay, aren't we?
It's the modern day endowment mortgage.
Good stuff. Okay, so talk to us. Well, this is a bit like, well, I'm going to ask you to make some predictions about, you know, what's going to happen at the end of that stamp duty holiday ending. If you want to make two different predictions, we'll edit it out so you're right in a few months' time. We'll forget that this is going out live.
I'll do one, Katie can do the other.
If you want to do your last Debbie McGee impression and bring up that final slide, that will kind of show what we think will happen. So if you go down to the very bottom one, that one there. So if, as is kind of, you know, rumoured, he extends the stamp duty holiday by 6 weeks, then what will that'll take us to the 12th of May rather than the 31st of March. And what that graphic there shows is what kind of difference we estimate that will make. Right. So at the moment, there's 581,000 property sales that are in progress. And we estimate that 374,000 of those won't complete by the time we get to the end of the current stamp duty holiday deadline. Although that is everything that is in progress. So it's probably more realistic to look at everything that was agreed before the 1st of January this year as to being likely to have assumed they would hit the stamp duty holiday. Because, you know, let's face it, in normal times, your time to complete was around about 12 weeks. At the moment, we're sitting at about 22, 23 across the country, which is you know, pretty astounding, really. And that's certainly something that we've not seen in recent past as well. But if we look at just sales that were agreed in 2020, there's still 370,000 of those which are currently in progress. And of those, about 170,000 are likely to miss the deadline on the 31st of March. So that's what you can see on the left-hand side of that graph. Whereas if the Chancellor does extend it to for another 6 weeks, then the view on the right is what we think we will see instead.
It's dramatic, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it's, you know, there's never going to be a perfect time to cut it off. Some people are always going to suffer, and they're going to miss it. But if they do extend it by 6 weeks, then it moves from 171,000 who are likely to fall through down to about 116,000. So around about 55,000 sales that will go through if there is that level of extension. And, you know, obviously these numbers are based on things kind of ticking through as you would expect. We may see, and I know that there's been a fair bit of coverage about it in the press at the minute, we may see a lot of people who are renegotiating on their sales. And, you know, that means that the number isn't as high as we're predicting. But as it stands, you know, whether it's 171,000 or 116,000, the truth of the matter is that there's going to be a big number of sales that don't go through, and it'll be interesting to see in 2 months' time what the figures are on fall throughs.
Yeah, well, there's a show right there. That's really
And for our next webinar,
you've got me hooked. Obviously, yeah. That's thank you, Katie. It really is fascinating stuff. It's the challenge you've got is when you hear the news from the wider marketplace, then you're talking to everybody in a micro environment, aren't you? Sometimes it's really difficult to gauge exactly what's going on, and that's why I think it's absolute gold dust to get that kind of feedback from your good sales.
Yeah.
And clearly it's echoed here as well, Richard. Really enjoyed the discussion. Advertising agency specialising in residential property for agents, developers. Would be great to have a link to the discussion along the slides. Just to make the point, Richard, you can go to the landing page, and we always put the videos up on there straight afterwards. Have a link. You can share them if you need to as well from there. And yes, absolutely happy to. We'll send you over the link to the slides, and you can put them in contact with Katie and Darren as well following that conversation. Well, it would again. Sorry, you're going to say something, Kate?
No, the other thing I was just going to say, Simon, is that if anybody wants to sign up for our client briefings, there's this kind of level of analysis is sent out each week. So they can either contact me or Darren with their contact details, and we'll add them to the distribution list. Yeah. On the basis that we'd assume that they'd become clients pretty soon.
Yes, and they're really good.
Equally, if they want to get in touch with you guys at Kerfuffle and you can pass their details on, then we can do it that way.
Honestly, however works, so anyone get in contact, we're not precious like that. And it goes without saying as well. Let's just have a look here. Obviously, always encourage people to go see their wonderful 5-star rating there as well. But here's the crucial thing: is you've got just a few days for their February deal here for both Prospect and the Prospect Plus service. Before the end of February, get a third off your monthly subscription. But the one that jumps out for me is agents with less than 5 branches, free until the end of June, which is an amazing deal. But I think you were making the point, though, the off-market stuff is the Prospect Plus. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
See, I do learn. See, you keep me. Gradually, I pick up on this stuff. So, look, you can always click on that wonderful pink button there. And as we say, we'll forward those details on to the team here. But guys, look, I've really enjoyed that. That's really interesting to be able to understand it. It's good to see somebody without an obvious bias putting those stats together. I get them. I get those briefings. You're kind enough to share at least a few of those with me, and I wouldn't be without them. So just if there's no reason other than all the other great stuff you do, they should reach out to you on that basis.
I think it's one of. I mean, I've worked with agents long enough to know that they love to do a bulletin, newsletter, and become the property professional and the person that goes to in the marketplace where they want to get all the data on what's happening in the market. The information's there readily available for the guys out there. And if they want to utilise it to become the property professional in their area, feel free to get in touch. Brilliant.
Cool. Well, great to have you on board with our team. Darren, lovely to catch up. We will have hopefully you can see me acting disgracefully at an event very soon. And Katie, absolute pleasure as ever. I'll forward on those details to you, and anyone who wants them, I'll send the slides that you kindly shared. But for now, thanks once again, and look forward to catching up soon.
Great, thanks, Simon. Good to see you.